Hello everyone and welcome to your next history lesson. Now in our last lesson we looked a little bit at ancient Egyptian religion and we looked at the types of gods they had and the goddesses and the type of religion that they had. So we should remember really that they were what we call polytheistic, which means that they believed in lots and lots of different gods and goddesses. Poly meaning many, theistic being to link to your beliefs and what you believe in. Now I know what you're thinking. Mr. Carter, why on earth am I looking at this random bit of the desert and whatever this is down here, okay? So we're going to have a little look at what is going on here. I'm not really going to say too much about it because I want you to see what the next part of ancient Egyptian religion and beliefs was. So as we're going through, just have a think, what could this possibly be about? So now we've got this kind of weird structure going on here. Can you see anything interesting going on there? As we move down, we can see we've got a staircase, we've got a corridor, we've got these little rooms here, we've got something called a treasury, think about what might be in there, and we've got a burial chamber. Now let's have a look. This is interesting. So what's going on here? We've got boxes inside boxes. I've got a different kind of box. Ooh. And there we have it. This is essentially what we're going to be looking at today, is the mummification process. Now most of you will have heard about ancient Egyptian mummies and mummification and probably have some sort of idea about it, but we're going to be taking a little look at it a bit closer and understanding exactly what it was. Now what you've just seen there was the 3D model of Tutankhamun's burial chamber in the Valley of the Kings, his tomb, and of things like his face mask. Okay, so Tutankhamun was a very famous pharaoh. He was a very young pharaoh, but one of the reasons he was famous was because of this death mask that was here. Now that gives you a bit of a clue as to ancient Egyptian religion and beliefs as well, that they had something called death masks, and these were put on people who had been mummified sometimes to kind of help them into the afterlife. Now the afterlife is mainly what we're going to be focusing on today, that and mummification, and understanding what the afterlife was. Now we should be able to work out straight away that this is life after you die, so this is the life after your life on earth. And the Egyptians weren't the only people to believe in an afterlife. Various other civilizations had their own version of sort of heaven and hell and what happened to your body and your spirit and your soul after you died, but we're going to be looking at the Egyptian one today. So to help us through that, I've got a little video for you to watch from the BBC, so take a look.
Now then, let me introduce you to Ka and his wife Merit. Now these are two ancient Egyptians who lived 3,500 years ago. But why on earth are they still here? Their bodies haven't rotted away, and that's because they were mummified. They were preserved in a very careful way. But why were they mummified? And more importantly, how on earth do you mummify anyone?
The Egyptians believed that even when you died, your soul stayed alive and travelled to the afterlife, a kind of heaven where you could live again forever. But because your soul could also come back into your body, you had to look your best, just as you had done in life. And this meant the ancient Egyptians had to find a way to stop the body from rotting in such a hot climate. So this is where mummification came in. It was a process which had several stages and took 70 days.
The first thing the Egyptians did would be to take out all their insides, starting with the brain. And they usually used a metal hook like this one, which they'd stick up the nose, and then they whisked very vigorously inside the top of the skull, and then allowed the brain to come out down the nose. The next thing will be to take the inside of the body out, and they did this with a piece of volcanic glass called obsidian, and they used this to make a cut in the lower left side of the body, just here. It made a very clean cut, and the people who did the mummification would stick their hands inside and pull out all the internal organs and preserve them separately and put them in jars called canopic jars. The only thing they left inside the body was the heart. So that would be left here because for the Egyptians, they thought it was rather like the brain. It was the thing that allowed people to think and to feel. It was the seat of all learning. And so they left the heart in the body. And then they would dry out the body with a salt called natron.
But the mummies of Ka and Merit were prepared differently because their insides were not removed. Although their mummies have never been unwrapped, they have been studied using X-rays and computerised scans. This one shows the inside of Ka's skull, and although the brain has dried out and shrunk, it's clearly been left inside. This is because the Egyptians were still trying out different and more effective ways to mummify people. The scans also show that underneath Ka and Merit's wrappings, they wore special jewellery and charms known as amulets, which the Egyptians believed would help protect them on their dangerous journey into the afterlife. This shows the outline of a huge necklace that Merit is wearing. And to find out what this necklace might actually look like, I've come here to the Petrie Museum in London, where they have Egyptian jewellery found in tombs from the same time as Ka and Merit. This beautiful necklace is very similar to the one that we can see in Merit's scan.
It's the typical Egyptian necklace that you see in the tomb scenes and in the art. It's basically made up of numerous little moulded amulets that have been made in these sumptuous jewel-like colours. And this is exactly the same thing that Merit still wears. Her mummy is still adorned in this beautiful broad collar, which we can see on the image of Merit here.
The green amulets represent lettuces and the blue ones, grapes. Both of these are like good luck charms, linked to the gods that Merit worshipped in her life and wanted to still worship in the afterlife. From Ka's scan, we can see that underneath the gold jewellery all round his neck, he also wears a type of amulet known as a heart scarab. It lies on Ka's chest above his heart, and it's very similar to this one.
The Egyptians thought that one would be judged in the next world for any crimes you committed in life. You had to answer to the gods. And sometimes the heart might give false witness against you. The heart would jump up and say, well, actually in life, the individual did this or that. And so the heavy heart scarab was a means of suppressing the heart, keeping it quiet. The spell implores the heart, keep quiet, do not give false witness against me. Basically, shut it.
After this special jewellery had been placed on their bodies, Ka and Merit were wrapped in an enormous amount of linen strips up to 200 metres long. Their bodies were then placed in their coffins and taken to their underground tomb. They were now ready for their journey to the afterlife, where they would live forever. The ancient Egyptians believed that mummification was needed to preserve their bodies for the afterlife. But mummification has also preserved Ka and Merit's bodies for us, so that we're able to study them and learn about their lives and deaths 3,500 years ago.
So now we're going to take a little look at the mummification process itself and what was actually involved. So you can see here from the picture that actually there was a lot involved in it, and that means that it was quite a complicated procedure and it was quite an expensive procedure as well. So this wasn't just for everybody. Only people who were rich or important would have been able to have afforded mummification, and anytime we find a mummified body or a sarcophagi or a sarcophagus, then we have to treat it very carefully, because we know that this is largely going to be somebody rich and important who then might tell us a bit more about ancient Egyptian life. So let's have a little look at the process then. So it says that when you die, your body will be taken to the place of purification called the Ibu, which is a tent situated on the west bank of the River Nile. This is because the sun god Ra sets on this side, which is thought to be a symbol of death and the afterlife. In the Ibu, this is what will happen to you. If you have a sensitive stomach, look away now. So the first step was to wash the body, and this can be done with wine, Nile water, or even both. And this was to keep you clean. Next is the removal of your brain. Now the brain was thought to be a bit useless, as the ancient Egyptians believed that the thought with our hearts and not with our heads. And to be fair, some of us probably do. Now, getting the brain out is a bit tricky and a bit disgusting as well. So to do it, a long hook was inserted up the nose, and a lot of people think it was just kind of pulled out. It wasn't, because that would damage the inside of your head and the brain, okay? So what would actually happen was they'd stick a hook up your nose, and then they'd blend it around, they'd whisk it around really, really quickly so that it kind of turned to mush, and then it would kind of just fall out through your nose, and then that would be poured into a bowl. Then they'd make a cut on the left side of your body so that the liver, lungs, intestines and stomach could be removed. And your heart might be removed too, but if it was, then it'd be dried and put back in later. So then the ancient Egyptians believed that the heart was the most important organ in the human body and that you needed it in order to enter the afterlife. Now all of these organs needed to be cleaned, so the liver, the lungs, intestines and the stomach would be put into special containers called canopic jars, which allow the organs to be rejoined with your body in the afterlife. So each of the jars had a different Egyptian god's head on them. So the first one is Kebe Sinuath, who has a falcon head and holds the intestines, so we can see that one here. Hapi has the head of a baboon and holds the lungs. Duamatef has the head of a jackal and holds the stomach, and Imset has a human head and holds the liver. So each of your major internal organs would be stored in these weird canopic jars, and hopefully you will be reunited with them in the afterlife. Then if the heart has been taken out, then at this point it'll be put back. Next, your body's then filled with straw, dried grass, rags, sawdust or even mud to help keep its shape. You've just had all this stuff taken out, you need something in there to help keep its shape. Your body's now filled and covered with special Egyptian salt called natron, which gets rid of moisture and prevents decay. And you're left for about 40 days, depending on how long it takes to dry you out. The natron will be changed on a daily basis. And this is why this wasn't done for everybody. It would take an awfully long time just for one person. So could you imagine if there were hundreds or even thousands of people that this needed to be done for? Next, when you're dried out, the salt is removed and you're cleaned with wine, spices and scented with myrrh and other nice things. Resin, a sticky substance produced by some trees, is then used to close the wound that was opened to take out all of your organs, and if you're really special, it'll be stitched up. Once closed up, either a large plaque in the shape of an eye or a two-fingered amulet, jewellery that is thought to have protective properties, is put on the closed wound to prevent evil forces from entering the body. Next, your body is dressed in linen binds. This gives you the mummy look we all know and love. This process can use up to a huge 375 metres squared of linen. Whoever's mummifying you shouldn't forget to use resin on alternate layers for extra protection and to occasionally put amulets in there too to help with the journey into the afterlife. And finally, a mask is then put over your face, you're placed into a casket, and lastly put into a sarcophagus, which is a sort of fancy coffin, which you've just seen, ensuring that you're ready for the afterlife. So, we know that the Egyptians then took mummification and the kind of process of death very, very seriously. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go back through some of these, and I want you to put the instructions back in order. So the attached worksheet that you've been sent, you need to put that in order. If you want to print it out and cut it out and then put it in order that way, you can do, or if you just want to write the steps in order, you can do. But what I also want you to do is I want you to investigate a mummy. I know you're thinking, Mr. Kaz, I don't have a mummy in my home. Well, you probably have a mummy in your home, but it's probably the wrong kind. I want you to do this using an app. Now, this is an app that is free, and it's on iOS and Android, and it's been made by the BBC, so you know it's going to be good and you know it's going to be safe. And this is called Civilizations AR. The AR stands for Augmented Reality, which means that things pop up in your house. Okay? I want you to go on there and I want you to find the Egyptian mummy scene and put it on a table, put it on the floor, put it in your bed if you want, although remember to take it out. And then use the X-ray button down at the bottom to have a look inside of that mummy inside of that sarcophagus, okay, and see what you find. So don't forget to send examples of your work to your teachers, and hopefully we'll see you for the next lesson.